I'm Minnie.
And I'm Juliet.
Welcome to our crash course.
You guys are in for a treat as we have a special two-parter episode.
Today on CCJM, we will be talking about the famous New York Times bestseller, How to Read Literature Like a Professor by Thomas Foster.
We have decided to take on chapter 23 and 24, called It's Never Just Heart Disease and Rarely Just Illness. And don't read with your eyes. Now enough talk, let's get into the show.
Let's talk about the first half of the chapter title, Heart Disease. To quote Foster, in literature there is no better, no more lyrical, no more perfectly metaphorical illness than heart disease. The heart has always been the center of emotion, whether it be love and compassion or hatred and loneliness. People dying from heart disease is usually highly symbolic. Yes, they died from their lack of a heartbeat, but to us and the character themselves, they died from the pain that they felt. But dying from a broken heart doesn't always mean dying from a heart disease, as Foster tells us. In the movie Gangster, a young broken woman named Simran ends her own life after a roller coaster of violence, unfulfilled promise, and heartbreak. But for us, what matters is the heartbreak part. Prior to her death, she lost the love of her life and her first and only child. Though her autopsy said she died from suicide, we as the audience know that it was because of a broken, shriveled up heart. One thing Foster mentions is that the character does not have to be evil to die from heart disease or heart illness, which we see in the case of Simran. Now let's talk about the second half of the title, illness in general. Foster tells us 4 points about this very broad concept. The first one is that all diseases are not created equal. He uses the example of cholera and syphilis. Foster says cholera is a bad disease because of the bad reputation it has. If you want your character to have a bacterial infection, go for syphilis, an infection contracted through sexual intercourse. The second point is that the disease should be picturesque. The example Foster uses is tuberculosis. TB makes your skin go pale and translucent, and your eyes become dark, almost like a martyr. The third point is that the disease should be mysterious in origin. The audience shouldn't know where the disease came from metaphorically. One movie that fits this example is 102 Not Out. Our main character is a lovable, happy-go-lucky 102-year-old man wanting to break the world record for oldest man alive. Over time, we grow close to this character and we root for him and his goals. However, near the end of the movie though, we learn that he has a very rare and deadly cancer and he does not have much longer to live. Though this doesn't stop him and he still is the cheerful, optimistic guy we know him as, we as the audience, we are left with the question, why? Why did our favorite character come across this horrible illness? Why him? Why not the antagonist? The last point that Foster gives is that the disease on some level should be metaphorical. We should be enlightened and figure out something about the character that we wouldn't have otherwise if not for the disease. Let's talk again about syphilis. Since it is contracted through sexual intercourse, it could, and a lot of times it does, symbolize divine wrath for your sins. Now enough of this morbid sickness talk. Let's get Juliet here so she can talk about chapter 24.
One more factor is letting our judgment of the way that the story is written come into place. The next chapter is 24, and it's called Don't Read with Your Eyes. This may sound weird and strange, but it isn't talking literally. It is talking about perspective. When we read, it is easier to read from our point of view, or in our world. However, by doing that, we aren't getting the full understanding of what we are reading. To find a deeper meaning, we need to not read the book from our perspective, but from the perspective of those who are in the book. You need to put yourself in that time period, and that book was talking about, in the place to forget your own world. By eliminating your own world, you are getting rid of all the other factors that might affect the way that you understand the book. Another factor that might hinder our deep understanding of the book is that we have to remember that the characters are not people. This means that we shouldn't get emotionally attached to a certain character, because without knowing it, that makes us opinionated. When we are opinionated, it hinders our intake of the new information in the book. Foster uses the example of the Sunny Blues to explain this theory. He thought that reading the book through a contemporary eyes, which means that we shouldn't think of the characters in books as if we were friends with them in real life. One more factor is letting our judgment of the way that the story is written come into place. Authors of books are going to write their books very opinionated with racist or sexist views. and it has been an ongoing argument on whether a person should read books like that. However, if you do read those books, make sure that you tried not to let your very opinionated style of writing get in the way of the actual meaning of the book. Thanks for listening.
Tune in to another episode of CCJM.